Hello everyone. So in this video, we'll learn about Python tuples. So similar to list, tuples are also data structures. They're data types that are used to store multiple variables under one variable. So a few things to remember here about tuples is that you can have duplicate elements within tuples, but tuples are not changeable. So you cannot mutate a tuple once it's created. So you can't delete or add elements to and or from a tuple. So, that's what makes them faster than the list, because of the constant set of values. So let's dive into it a little bit more. So like I mentioned, with tuples, it's multiple items within round brackets. So let's start with, just as an example, T1 here. So, you can have an empty tuple with just an empty round brackets. I don't know, you call these brackets or parentheses, whatever. So if I print T1, it's, the output would be just an empty tuple. So to create an empty tuple, just use empty brackets. So I was saying, you can have multiple items within, parentheses, or you can also have just one item. But the syntax for that is you would need to have a comma. So if I decide to say, okay, I just want one variable within this tuple, I'm just going to do, for example, hello, but I'll have to follow that with a comma. So if I don't do that, let's print this one first. So that's a tuple with just one single element. But if I don't do the comma, it's going to be something else. So let's try that. So T1, and if you don't use, if you want to have a single item for a tuple and you don't put a comma in it, it's just going to think, it's just a regular, regular string. So it's not going to consider this as a tuple. So for a single element, you have to have a comma at the end of that tuple here. So we've seen empty tuple, one single, a single element for a tuple. And of course, you can have, different data sets within a tuple as well. You can have numbers, just like list, or strings alone, or a combination of both. So let's just say here Python, or say hello, etc., etc. So printing that, you have a set of a tuple with 5 elements. And if I want to know, how many elements, because this is just a 5 element, but you can have millions of them, right? But if you want to know, you can use the length function, and we've seen that in list as well, in the list video. So you can say length, len, T1, print that, it says 5 elements. So this is a 5-element tuple. And just like list, you can also access tuples with indexing. So the first element here is index 0, just like list. So this is, 1 is index 0, index 1, 2, 3, etc. And you can also do negative, so that's positive indexing. And you can also do negative indexing, in which case the last element is always -1, -2, -3, etc., etc. So if I want to print if I want to print 100, which in this case is index 2, this is what you do. So you could just print T1, square brackets, index 2, for example. So if you run that, it's gonna output the second index number 2, in this case is 100. So if I decide to do negative indexing, for example, and I want to print hello, which is the last element, but I want to do negative indexing, I can do that as well. T1, which is the name of our tuple here, and then -1. So it'll print out the last element, which is hello in this particular case. Okay. So you don't also have to have round parentheses for tuples. You can also have the elements separated by just commas. So let's say T1 equals you can have hello 1, 2, 3, or not as strings but numbers. So 1, 2, 5, 8, 100, 99, whatever. So this is also considered a tuple. So they can be separated by just commas and without the parentheses. So just keep that in mind as well. So you can have it this way, or you can have round brackets. But I prefer to have the round brackets just to kind of differentiate between whether I'm working with list, tuple, sets, or whatever. So I like the standard syntaxing, but you don't have to use parentheses for tuples. So just keep that in mind. I just wanted to mention that. So so we can keep our original tuple here. Let me reprint that. So remember, with tuples, you cannot change it. It's unchangeable. So you can't mutate it. So if you try to do that, you're going to get an error. So let's say, T1, you want to change 100 here, or maybe 3, which is the first index. Index 1. You want to change that to, let's say, 99. So if you run that, you're going to get an error because tuples is unchangeable. And there are some benefits to that, which we'll talk about a little bit later as we get into the course, as to why you would want a unchangeable data structure. But for now, since this is basic introduction to tuples, just remember that you cannot change tuples. So if you want to add an element, remove, or update, you cannot do that. You're going to get an error. So this right here is unmutable. It will stay this way. So although you cannot, update tuples or, change the elements within tuples and whatnot, you can delete the entire tuple. So by using the delete function. So if I want to just erase or delete the entire tuple, I can do that, but I cannot change, or update or remove the elements within tuples, unlike list when you can do that. So if I want to delete the entire tuple, I just use, the delete function, del, T1, and if I run that, so if I say print T1, it's going to bring an error because at this point, it's already deleted, it's not defined anymore. So we'll have to redeclare if you want to, keep practicing or working with our tuples. We're going to have to redeclare it because it's already deleted over here with this del function. So let's just copy this here. There you go. So if I run that now, it's redeclared. So the underlying type of a tuple is the tuple class. So you can check the type of variable using the type function, and I think we've seen that in the list tutorial. So if I want to just find out the type of variable, I can use a type function. In this case, T1. So it's going to say tuple. So that's the class is tuple. I think it's good to kind of know that when you're working with a large script or a large data sets to try to make sure that you're working with the right type of data set, etc. So keep that in mind, the type function. And as far as operations or methods for tuples, if you recall, with list, you had append, remove, count, index, pop, etc. But with tuples, you only have count and index, and the methods that would, remember, tuples are not changeable. So the methods or the operations that would modify the tuple are missing, right? Logically. So here we can either use count or index, and we've seen that in the list video as well. So to count will pretty much, so count will return the number of times a specified value appears in the tuple. So if you had like multiple times 100 or Python or whatever, any of these elements appear, we'll use the count and we'll say 100, the value, the exact value. So if you run that, it'll say, one time. So 100 only appears one time for this tuple. And then index as well, you can use the same. So if I want to know what's the position of 100 in this tuple, then I just use the dot index, the tuple dot index, and if I run that, it's going to tell me that it's index 2. So this is 0, 1, and 2, right? As we've seen that in the list video, in the list tutorial as well. So it's almost some of the same concept. So pretty straightforward as well. So there's also what we call the tuple constructor, which is used to convert any element to tuple type. So for example, if I say, okay, T2 as my tuple 2, and I use tuple, this is the tuple instructor. So there is such thing called tuple constructor. So if I want to, for example, convert a string, let's say Python, if I want to convert this to tuple, let's run that and you'll see what I'm saying. So if I print T2, so you see here, so this constructor allows you to convert any iterable to tuple type. So as you can see here, this is now a tuple. It's no longer a string, but it's a tuple. So we've converted a string to tuple by using the tuple constructor. And you can do that with any data type. This is a string, but if you want to convert a list as well, as we've seen, you can do that as well. So let's say you have T2 using the tuple instructor, and you have a list here, and remember, list is square brackets, right? So if I say just whatever, 99, 101, let's say, keep it simple, hello, and I print T2. Oop. So you see here, now this particular list, and there is a list because it's within square brackets, is now converted to a tuple. And you can tell that by the parentheses, the round brackets. So use a tuple constructor to convert a data type, or a data type to tuple. And we can keep going with different examples here. So we haven't seen set yet, but you can convert sets to tuples. You can convert dictionaries to tuples as well. So by using the tuple constructor. Okay. So the operators that you used that we use with strings, you can also use that for tuple. Let's say, for example, you want to use T3 um, and add uh, T. No, let's print that. So you see here, what was T1 again? I should have, yeah, so T1 was 1300 Python, and this is T2. So all I did was just use the plus sign to kind of combine the two tuples under T3, right? So this created a single tuple containing both elements of T1 and T2 by using the plus sign. And also, if I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just go ahead and try it. But you know, using the multiplication or whatever concatenation operator here to have, you know, multiple copies of the same tuple. So let's see what this will do. Okay, yeah, I figured that. So I can use another example here to kind of illustrate what I want to say. So let's say I have, you know, just to keep it simple, I have 1, 2, 6, 9, you know, 100, whatever. And let's say T2 is equal to, oh, maybe not T2, but oh yeah, so T2 is like, for example, T1 times 4 using the concatenate operator with tuples. So I just want to show you that you can do that. So if I print T2, you see, so it kind of gives me multiple copies of T1 4 times. So here is 4, so I have T1 1 time, you know, 2 times, 3 times, and 4 times. So tuples also allow you to do that. So I guess earlier is probably because of, yeah, I don't know why it didn't work. I didn't really debug the error there. But yeah, so I just wanted to show you that you can do that with tuples as well. All right. So the same way you would want to return items in the range, like, you know, when I was talking about indexing, I forgot to mention that. But you know how you do positive indexing, and the first element is index 0. Let's say here, this is index 1, index 0, index 1, 2, 3, etc. To also return range, you can use, let's say, yeah, let me just do it. So if I want to print the you know, range of elements, and I want to like print first of all, let's see how many elements is this. T2. So this is a 20 element. So I want to print elements 6 through 6 through let's say 15. Okay, so remember it's 15 plus 1. So if I run that, it's only going to go from, you know, element 6 all the way to 15. So 1 is actually 15, 16, 17, 8, 19. Wait. So index 6. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So this is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. But I want 15, right? I want it and index 6 through 15, so I do 16 plus 1. That way it's going to include 1. But if we've covered it in list pretty detailed, but I figured I'll just put that here as well, just as a reminder. But if I do this, it's going to just print, it's not going to include 1. It's going to print to 100, which is in this case the 14th index. So just remember that. So whatever is applicable to list as far as indexing and printing out, range of index is also applicable to tuples. So I just wanted to mention that. But the last thing I want to talk about in tuples, but because I feel like we've covered everything about the basics on tuples, is using the in operator and the not operator. So for example, let's reprint T2 just so we have that. So if I want to know if basically, so the in operator returns true if an item exists in the given tuple. So let's say, I put like 100 in T2 is going to tell me it's true. So this is pretty much like asking the tuple, do I have 100 in this tuple right here? And it's going to tell me true. However, if I say, for example, 99, not in tuple, so this is asking, is 99 in this tuple? So I do have 99 here somewhere. Oh, actually, because it says not in, I want it to return false. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 100, not in T2. So it's going to say false. So the not in is really the opposite of in. So 99 is not in T2, and that's true, right? 100 is, this is asking 100 is not in T2, and that's false because we have 100 here multiple times. And as you can see here, like I mentioned earlier in the introduction, that tuples allow duplicate items, and you can tell here because I have 100, 100 a few times here in this particular tuple. So it does allow duplicate items as we've talked about earlier. So I think this is the last item that I wanted to cover on tuples at this point for the basic knowledge on tuples, and we'll do multiple examples as we dive a little bit more into the Python course. So let me know if you have any questions on tuples, and we'll go ahead and get into sets now.